Astro Cyborg, I'm going to have to take the bait because you're doing that thing again where you're going to find what I think is one of the most provocative posts you highlighted. Apparently, user Nib is highlighted by Astro Cyborg, so blame him when it all comes down about the PlayStation console sales and being as a result of console exclusives that are available on the console. Now, many of you know that once we dig through what the reality is, the picture is more than likely going to be different. Before we jump into this video, we must pay very close attention to what the data has been showing us for the last few months. I will now, first of all, pull up Matt Piscatella's weekly, well, I guess I would say bi-weekly or quarterly of a month data set that he pulls up as to the highest player engagement for video games ending various weeks, which we will see a regular trend of games like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, NBA 2K25, Roblox, EA Sports, WWE 2K24, NFL 25, Dragon Ball Sparkling Zero, Minecraft, Mortal Kombat 1, Overwatch, Apex Legends, Rocket League, and bottom at number 13 in this top 15 list, Marvel Spider-Man 2, right after a Thanksgiving holiday. When he puts this particular data set up over and over again, the list almost barely changes. It seems like over and over, gamers are playing very similar games on PlayStation, Xbox, and on PC, there's a whole category of games that are being played on the PC platform. When you notice another trend is many of these games are live service games. This lends credence to even what Linus Tech Tips shared on his podcast about how majority of the time spent on video games, basically almost 50% of all the time spent, were only dictated by somewhere around 40 or so or 20 games, which is insane. So anybody that wants to talk about PlayStation 5 sales in this console generation has to factor in that PlayStation 5 is coming off of the PlayStation 4 conversion. Having sold 117 million copies, majority of the PS5 owners are basically moving to from the PS4. For many of them, if they were to judge this generation as what PlayStation has been able to provide from their own IPs, it's going to be very scant in terms of games out there. So when Nib put up this particular post saying one of the reasons because the PlayStation 5 is outselling the Xbox so drastically is because it has more new console exclusives for people to play. 9 of these new exclusives will have charted in 2024, which is a lot for a single year. Spider-Man 2 was charting throughout the year too. What? Spider-Man 2 came out in September 2023 and is now making its way to PC on a shorter term. Shorter than every other PlayStation game that has actually made its way to PC. So if it was charting and that led to people converting to, buying these games and these games is their biggest draw, then why is it coming to PC on a much shorter window? Another really interesting thing is when you look at this list, it's filled with third-party developer games. What PlayStation made as its own studios from here is a remaster, The Last of Us Part 2, a remake, Until Dawn, a copped Black Myth Wukong game, I think, and it's my speculation, I may be wrong. I mean, you know what? Forget it. Let's just say I'm not wrong. Let's just say I'm wrong, sorry. A third-party Black Myth Wukong, Grand Blue Fantasy third-party, Awaken, Astra Blade, Stellar Blade third party, Rise of Ronin third party, Final Fantasy 7, The Rising Tide, Final Fantasy 16, third party, and a bunch of third party titles. And so Clute here asks and says, don't dance around it. Don't write 5-hour essays. A simple question needing an answer. If Sony's way of third party exclusivity was so lucrative, why is Square Enix moving away from it? Forspoken, Final Fantasy 16, Rebirth all missed targets and expectations. Why can't 65 million plus console sales prevent that from happening? And so Nib replies, and after being told not to do 5 paragraphs, did 3, said you're assuming it's Square Enix moving away from them because of sales, when it actually could be because PlayStation no longer wants to pay large sums for exclusivity deals as the ROI may no longer make sense for them. This is where we should end the video because this is a very dishonest human being. If this is not an AI or a, trained algorithm designed to basically argue with any means possible, counter to whatever arguments are given, then this is dishonesty. You know why I say this is dishonesty? Because Square Enix themselves reported that they were not meeting their targets to their shareholders. They said that their profitability was low. Did somebody just try to rewrite history in front of everybody? This is what the hyper PlayStation fanboys have done for many months. This is why there was a visceral reaction when I started pulling data and talking about gaming on this channel. I saw a lot of people react in ways that I'd never seen before. I had to be like, what's going on? And then I started to see folk like this pretty much just say outright deflections, outright, in my opinion anyways, just make counterclaims that lean towards being dishonest. This is crazy. Can you imagine them saying, why would you think? Look at this answer again, ladies and gentlemen. Just look at this. You're assuming it's Square Enix moving away from them because of sales, when Square Enix reported that the sales were not satisfactory and the profits were not satisfactory, reported to their shareholders. And they said when it actually could be because PlayStation no longer wants to pay large sums for exclusivity deals, as the ROI may no longer make sense for them. Wow. So Tout, deciding to allow for him to move the goalpost so that he can trap him again, responds and said, we have recent and clear evidence that Sony is in the market for more exclusivity deals, but they get rejected more often than in the past. Look at Pearl Abyss's example. So they then replied and said, do you have reading comprehension issues? I never said Sony stopped looking for exclusivity deals, but that they may no longer want to pay Square Enix for Final Fantasy in particular, since it's likely far more costly with lower ROI. Well, Nib, he's got you cornered, because you tried to dance around the Final Fantasy issue and decide to, pretty much put it in Final Fantasy, but he asked you about multiple titles in his question. He said Forspoken. He said Rebirth. He said Final Fantasy 16. You never responded to the Forspoken one. Now you're honing in on the Final Fantasy. This is how I know you end the video. And Astro Cyborg, you keep doing this stuff to me because you know it's bait, bro. You know I'm going to take the bait. I've never seen anything like this in my life. In fact, for posterity's sake, we should read the remaining 2 paragraphs of the initial response. Second paragraph said, it is estimated less than 10% of Final Fantasy 15 sales were on Xbox. Nobody's talking about Xbox. Do you see the deflection, guys? The question was, and we go back to the question, if Sony's way of third-party exclusivity was so lucrative, why is Square Enix moving away from it? Forspoken, Final Fantasy 16, and Rebirth all missed targets and expectations. Why can't 65 billion plus console sales prevent that from happening? That was, those were the 2 questions that were asked, and none of them have been answered so far. Instead, it's dancing around and making up stuff about Xbox. Then, final paragraph says, Square Enix has also had many multi-platform flops. Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, etc., and have also chosen to not release games on Xbox, even when exclusivity deals didn't exist. Octopath Traveler. No one is asking about that, Mr. Nib. No one is asking about those games. We're asking about the games that were exclusive, that stayed on Xbox, that did not profit the developer. We're also asking about why Koei Tecmo, because I can basically checkmate you upon checkmates, why Koei Tecmo has also announced that they want to basically be an independent publisher. What's going on here? You see that? Check this out. You see, somebody then looked and said, so now it's because Sony doesn't want to pay for exclusives. And the reason the ROI is not large, because so many of the PlayStation 5 owners don't buy the exclusives. They cap for them, but they don't buy them. Either way, you're making the situation worse. This person may think that they're trying to deflect and dodge, but they're just making the situation worse. So what's the ROI supposed to come from? It's supposed to come from sales of the games. So this guy, in an attempt to dodge the question, basically backs himself even into a smaller box. Where's PlayStation's ROI going to come from? It's going to come from the fact that people actually do see the games and say, ooh, where can I play this game? And hence, as they're about to buy the game and realize the PS5, they say, you know what? Let's just go ahead and buy the game anyways. People aren't moved to even buy the game, regardless of where it's on. Why? Because the initial data set that I showed you guys is a very strong factor. If I can be playing these games on my PS4, why should I bother? If I don't have a much more powerful machine, why would I bother? I'm not going to spend money for a much powerful machine to play one game. So the ROI is not reaching PlayStation because nobody wants to buy the game regardless of the platform. And then the ROI was not even satisfactory for Square Enix when they went ahead and actually told their own shareholders because nobody bought the game. Maybes, maybes, and maybes, because PlayStation's third-party exclusivity pillar has been largely eroded, and a lot of these folk do not want to go ahead and admit it. Instead, they deflect, they make up stuff, and they're running all over the place because for the most part, they backed themselves into a corner by swearing that PlayStation's exclusivity was the best thing in the world. And they make the same claims, and when they're being checked, because they just made the claim just now, nothing. Nothing, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing. And people watch and read and follow these folk, and they basically jump into a ditch because they are making logically unsound arguments, fallacies all over the place, and for the most part can't answer a simple question. It's just crazy to me how all of this is just so weird. Anyways, talk to me in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Peace out.